Lonely Place with Matt Pinfield. Today's guest, Claudio Sanchez from Coheed and Cambria.
Hey everybody, it's Matt Pinfield. This is called In a Lonely Place. And that's because I started the show during the pandemic in my living room. Well, I'm not in my living room anymore, but we're still in the pandemic. Regardless, I've been so enjoying doing this show. And, I named it after a Humphrey Bogart movie from the 1950s. There's also a Smithereens song, a New Order song, all called In a Lonely Place. Thought it was the perfect title. But regardless, you're never lonely as long as you have music in your life. And that's what this is all about. It's about musicians that I love and respect. And one of the guys that's certainly on the top of my list I have as a guest today because, I was blessed enough and grateful enough to actually sign the band to Columbia Records and, have a long-term relationship with the guys. As a huge fan of their music, I even went to this gentleman's wedding. That's right. I was there at his wedding, and I will say it was an amazing day. But we're going to be talking about his music, and I'm really happy to have him here. And I'm talking about Coheed and Cambria's Claudio Sanchez. Claudio, what's up, brother? How are you?
Who are you? Where's Matt Pinfield?
I know, right? Man? I know. Yeah, Claudio, it's amazing, man. I lost all that weight and been exercising, just 6 months sober, and just feeling really good,
That's awesome, man.
Came through that relapse I had during the pandemic. And I'm just grateful to be healthy and, be around for my friends, my loved ones, And speaking of friends, man, you and I go back, which I think is just so fantastic. And hey, I know your fans are really happy to see you today. How has the pandemic been for you? I mean, I know you guys had dates that were originally booked. Tell me what that experience was like, Claudio, when you, because, obviously there's so many responsibilities that came with that, with you being a dad, with Atlas Hendricks and, doing homeschooling and all the other things. What has it been like for you during this pandemic?
I've tried to stay busy, and I think I have been. Both my wife and I, we lost our grandparents during the time, and we couldn't actually be there for the loss. My grandfather was in the hospital, and we were lucky enough that my brother was a first responder and could be in there with him. But this was a man that was practically a second dad, lived with him most of my life, and didn't get a chance to say goodbye. And then a month after that, Chandra found out her grandmother, who she was very close to, fell ill, and we couldn't get down to Florida to say goodbye. And so those were the difficult moments, having our son home. We actually loved it. Gave, the time that I don't normally get when I'm on the road with him. So, that part I liked, but, the loss was hard, but I tried to stay busy, and I wrote a lot of music. I wrote, some music for Coheed. I wrote a record for Prize Fighter that I actually just got the test pressings for, that I wrote through the pandemic. And it was touching listening to it this morning, kind of removed from it, because it just reminded me of the beginning of it, my grandfather falling ill, those questions of how do I get up there, and can I get up there, the lockdown of the hospital, and losing the man. He lived a long life, World War II veteran, 100 years old. He used to tell me as a kid, Claude, if you want to make it in the industry, you have to have a gimmick. And it's funny because sometimes I, feel like in the eyes of others that don't know Coheed, it looks like a band of gimmicks because of, the concept, counterpart, and my hair. But it's, I never understood that idea. And I don't, I didn't necessarily agree with them. I thought it was an interesting thing to say. It didn't feel genuine, but it's funny now. Here we are, and I'm like, oh man, we might be perceived as that band that he was talking about. If that makes any sense.
No, that's amazing though. But I know a lot. That was, I think, the hardest thing for so many people, like you and Chandra, was not being able to actually be there and have a full-on funeral and just that kind of thing. So But I'm glad that you turned it into something creative, Claudio, which you always, that's always kind of been your thing that you've really done. And you're a guy that never stands still or sits still. That's why you've done so many things, whether it be graphic novels like the Amory Wars and the things that you've worked on for all these years. So the time in between on Heavenly Creatures and this, I mean, you were also, I remember when you did the Prize Fighter Inferno EP, and now this is a full-length album, right?
Yeah, this is a full-length album. It's pretty cool. Like my wife and I, before the pandemic hit, we actually closed on a house in Brooklyn, a couple of blocks from our apartment, and and the cover of the album is actually my son's hand in the bathroom, and some of the other photography on the record. One happens to be a broken sign at the Brooklyn Museum after a BLM protest, and the inside is like cool light. That's our house is like 100 years old. It's like this row house, and it's really a time capsule of like the experience of the time for, my experience of the time, my family's experience of the time. And there's a song on there I wrote for my mother called Stay Where You Are, because, she couldn't go to the hospital. And this is this was her dad, who's lived all of her life. And I just thought that was really hard. So I created the song for her, and it ends the record.
Yeah. I remember when the first record came out and I heard The Going Price for Home, and I just always still love that song. It's just so good. And, obviously it was different than what people were used to hearing. And is it crazy when you think back about it now, how many years, since Shibuti, and, when you first literally started working on Second Stage Turbine Blade, and, at that point you thought it was going to be a side project, right?
I did. I mean, I just... it's like how many lives have all of us? I mean, getting to be fortunate enough to live this long, like how many lives have we lived? I feel like I'm such a different person from, a lot of those songs on that first Prize Fighter record. I mean, they were all, just 4 tracks in my bedroom, my high school bedroom, 4-track cassette tape recordings. And same thing with Second Stage. There was a lot of those demos were on that same 4-track, Time Consumer, Everything Evil. It's, and yeah, that record we thought was going to be a series of demos, when we were demoing it to Equal Vision. And they chose, to sign the band and put that out. And we were like, all right, yeah, makes sense. It's here. It's done. Why record it again?
Which is amazing when you think about it, right?
Yeah. I love that. I mean, I just think about that time, Coheed and Cambria, and like, the fact that they're loosely based on my parents, and the Amory Wars being the Amory, the street I was on. And the Second Stage Turbine Blade, the title is actually, I don't know if I ever told you this, Matt, but it's actually taken from the airplane part that my father works on at, now that he's retired, but he used to work at a heat treatment plant, blue collar job, factory, and he would heat treat Second Stage Turbine Blades for airplanes.
That's amazing. It's great. It's such a cool title. It just sounds smart and tough. It's got, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. And you're like, but it ties back to family. Well, one of the things that I've always loved about you and about the band is a strong sense of family. I feel like the band has always been a family too. Probably why we were always so close. It was more than just a relationship with your A&R guy. It was family. You know what I mean? And
Freedom Night.
Freedom Night, which I think we should tell people was so much fun. We were on tour in Europe, right? And we, I remember I was struggling in the relationship that I was in, and you guys said, "Hey, you know what, man? There's an extra bunk on the tour bus. Why don't you fly over to England?" And we stayed in the Columbia Hotel, of course, the first couple of nights, as so many bands do. The Columbia Hotel, that's where Oasis wrote that song Columbia, basically about that hotel. I mean, their first demo. But we were there that night, and then you did Reading and Leeds, and then I went with you to Belgium and to France and to Holland, to Amsterdam and Italy and Germany, and but Freedom Night was the thing where. Because, it was crazy because we didn't, we stayed in the bus a lot of times. Freedom Night was the night we would rock out to Zeppelin and other hard rock and stuff. And Freedom Night meant everybody's shirts were off, whether for better or for worse. But it was so much fun. That tour was amazing. We just had a blast.
I bumped into, I don't bump into, he actually lives in the neighborhood, but Todd Horn, we were talking about, because he had bumped into us on that run. Do you remember Todd?
Yeah, in Paris. Yeah.
Yeah. And Todd actually, we visit he comes by every once in a while and we hang out and reminisce. And, he just had a baby. So, but yeah, he had brought up that night when, or that time our paths had sort of converged like over there.
Because
we talked about freedom.
Yeah, Freedom Night. In Paris, we were only there for like 20 hours. I mean, literally for a sound check, 2 meals at the same restaurant. And remember, it was so hot. And I think the other bands on the bill were like Yellow Card and Newfound Glory. Bouncing Souls were on some of the other bill dates. It was always different. But I remember there was one shower, and everybody, it was the heat of the end of summer. And everybody was like, well, look, there's no towels here. So it was like, what T-shirt did you use to dry your it was just like, it was just funny. It was great stuff. Yeah, Claudio, I just got to ask you, being a dad now too, with Atlas, I love the fact that there's this group that is doing lullaby versions of your songs, and they've done Welcome Home, right? Tell me about this. And isn't this album going to be called In Keeping Secrets of Silent Birth or something like that?
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I love it. I mean, I'm not so sure it's the first time it's been done, but it's cool. I love hearing our songs sort of in any, recreated in any capacity. I find it interesting. So, I mean, I was just, honestly, I wasn't that involved. I was just called and asked if it would be something that we were into having done. And I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? So.
That's amazing. Now, is it true that, a good percentage of the next Coheed record is already written too? Because I know that I saw something, you said maybe 3/4 of it were done or.
Yeah, I have. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, Matt.
Oh, no, go ahead. You got it.
Yeah, no, I have, at the moment I have 11 songs. But I'm also, I'm actually working very closely right now with Chase Stone, the fellow that did the art and the concept materials for the last record, the Vaxis One, Unheavenly Creatures. So we've been actually working on that for a few months now, and like just character design, concepts, locations, things like that, just to get all those things, kind of all of the ducks in a row, because that actually is a lot of work, like conjuring up all those materials. So that's been worked on for it's still being worked on for which has been for a while now. And I've just been writing as on the side. And like I said, I have 11 songs. I'm not so sure all 11 songs make sense in terms of their position, in terms of the second part of the story. But yeah, it's there. It's happening. I got to tell you, I've already got, cause Vaxis is supposed to be a 5-part pentology. And when I look back at the first Amory Wars, from Year of the Black Rainbow to the No World for Tomorrow story, I think about who I was as the person that wrote those things, and the overall idea of that concept about just somebody destined for for failure and destruction, and in hope that maybe out of that there's like a sense of redemption, and that's kind of what happens, like in the gist of that story. I mean, that's the theme, I think. Because I didn't know who I was. I was developing as a human being, a lot of confusion. Am I good? Am I bad? That kind of stuff. Like, how do I translate that into a concept? And this one, because I'm a dad, not that I feel any more secure, but it's fun to write from that perspective as opposed to being, the son. I'm now the father. And it's fun because Vaxis is basically Atlas. Yeah. And I see myself in Creature and Sister Spider, and I see my wife in Sister Spider, and the more I push forward with the characters that are reintroducing themselves or or new ones that are being introduced. It's just fun because I get to see this new form of my life now playing out in this piece of fiction, but from a different angle.
Yeah, it's amazing. I remember back, we were spending a lot of time together, before, in between, In Keeping Secrets and Good Apollo Volume 1. And I remember, why you were coming up with those songs, and just, even that period of time, and, things were going on in your life. And it was amazing to watch the way that record developed and how those songs all came out. I mean, it's one of my favorite records of all time, actually. And it's just, I mean, even being there when you played, I remember you playing Travis and I on the tour bus. Maybe Josh was asleep. I don't remember, Michael, but I remember that we actually were in tears. I mean, myself and Travis, when we heard Wake Up, we were like, it made me cry. I mean, I love the song so much, And I remember when you said to me, you're like, well, I go, what are you going to call the song? And you're like, well, I'm going to call it Wake Up. And you keep calling it Wake Up. Because usually, you call it something else. So I indirectly, unintentionally named the song, but such a beautiful song. It was, but so many things on that record. But I love the way that you've always been able to take things that are going on in your real life and then and translate them and have them filter through into the stories.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of that just has to do with being insecure, right? I mean, I had no idea what it was like to be a frontman, and it still took a long time to embrace that. But by the time I did, I realized how much fun I had, like just, translating it into this other world. Like it just felt more important to me and fun. I mean, I did have an opportunity to be on a Coheed, like do a Coheed record without the concept. And I thought that was important, certainly for the time, The Color Before the Sun, being sort of like the emotions and feelings before my son was born, what life was like before that change. So I thought that was important to do for that moment in time, but I did miss, like, just bringing it in and molding it into something more fantastic.
Yeah. Where do you like to record now? When you guys, do you still, when you go and record, do you record up in upstate New York sometimes, or do you go into New York City and where have you been recording the last couple records?
Well, so Color Before the Sun, we actually did in Nashville with Jay Joyce.
Yeah. So he didn't come to you guys. Yeah, you went down there. Then,
yeah,
right?
We went down to Nashville, and it was like the first, aside from like going to LA and working with Atticus and Joe Barresi, which was a great experience. That was the only other time. Oh, well, with Nick as well. This was the only other place aside from like New York or LA that we had gone that was different. Nashville. But the last record we decided to self-produce, and we went back up to Applehead where we had done most of those original records, and that was great. I mean, I loved it. It was, I got to go to the studio at like 4 or 5 in the morning, open up, sing, which I never really get to do all that much. I mean, that's when I feel like I'm my most productive and everyone's asleep.
Like 4 in the morning, 5, something like that?
Yeah. I'm into it. Love it. It's a little difficult now in the city, but now that we have a house, I get in here and I start demoing things pretty early, and our neighbor doesn't seem to mind so much, and I'm at the back side of the house. So, but yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what I find in myself. Like, it's usually like whether or not I feel like the day is going to be productive in this realm is if I get started early.
That's cool that you do. How did you like working with Atticus Ross too? I mean, was that a great experience? I mean, obviously, I'm so happy for him and Trent, that they've not only won Oscars and just so many other things that they've done, but and the great records. What was that experience like working with Atticus?
Oh, it was great. I mean, I think it's probably. What's that, Matt?
And Joe's great too, Joe Burrows.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that was my favorite. Not to discredit all the other producers that I worked with, before or after, like, but I just really enjoyed working with Atticus and Joe. Like, they just brought a sense. It reminded me of like being younger and the idea of the happy accidents. When I was younger and recording with 4 tracks, not like I do now with all these DAWs and things like that. It's like the happy accident would always like kind of inform what the song wanted to be. And they kind of reminded me of that. Like I kind of lost that along the way. And I was reminded that, you know, just be open to all things. That's how I sort of perceived, you know, the experience. And, you know, and at that time, I was also really getting into sound and sound manipulation. I mean, a lot of these like synthesizers and modular thing over here, like a lot of that kind of stems from working on that year, the Black Rainbow record. You know, No World was like my first real analog synthesizer, and I was always sort of interested. But I think when it came to that time of working with Joe and Atticus, that's when it kind of blew up a bit. And, you know, I've really kind of adopted that form and, you know, brought it into Coheed.
Yeah, which is great. And, you know, I love the sound treatments and the different things that are on the record and that are done through that. You know, it was cool. So, I mean, some of the fun things that you've done during the pandemic. Oh, by the way, you know, when we were talking about the new songs before, is there going to be a song called Hallelujah Pandemic? Because I know that was something they pressed, or was that just like something that, or...
You know, it's funny, like in September of last year, I started to write this song, and man, I wish I had a clip of it. I would play it for you because I don't think it's going to make the record. I just felt like ultimately it you know, just after the fact, it just feels funky to me. But I mean, who knows? We'll see. But I think I've written other songs that I think are cooler and more unique than that one.
Yeah. But that's cool. That's wild, though. And that was, like you said, it was a little while back. So
yeah, and I have like emails to Blaze about pandemic, like just those like the masks, like, oh, we should do these masks, and can you imagine if all the kids or all the fans were wearing the mask? Like it could be cool. The side we're like, oh.
And then it becomes real. It becomes life. Right? Right? Exactly. It becomes the real way of life. It's amazing. You know, well, you're a forward thinker. There's no question about it. It's amazing. You know, some of the fun things you've done during this pandemic too. I love that cover that you guys did of Anthem by Rush from my favorite Rush album, Fly By Night, which was
right.
That was fun. Tell me how that came down with you working with the guys in Mastodon and Primus and everybody. How did they just reach out to you? How did that work out?
Well, actually, Steven Brodsky of Caven hit me up. He lives in one of the neighboring, like I live in Crown Heights, so he lives up in Greenpoint. And you know, before that situation, we had been getting together and just like collaborating on some ideas, you know, and we formed like a friendship. And he reached out because I think, you know, 2 Minutes to Late Night was, you know, they were considering doing a Rush song. And they had me in mind to sing it, of course.
Yeah.
But you know me and my relationship with Rush.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not the biggest Rush fan, but
like people would think you are, but it's just like your natural voice. People would say that, oh, it must be in a Rush. And it was like, I said, no, but there's so many bands that I know he's actually really into. Not that you don't love Rush, but they weren't your biggest influences. Like,
yeah. But then he hit me up. He hit me up and he said, you know, Bill from Mastodon was going to curate it, and they were thinking of getting Les Claypool and Danny Carey. And I was like, how do I say no to this? I'm like, you picked a Rush song. Yeah. I'm like, could it be anything else? But
well, I mean, I'm sure because you get tired of the comparison type thing. But I loved it. I gotta tell you, like I'm as much as I'm not a fan, and I have my reasons, or I am a fan, but you know, not as one would think. But I realized how it was a challenge. Like I hadn't sang in a long time like that. You know, we're talking, I think, how old was Geddy Lee when he cut that song? Like in his 20s? And I'm early 20s. Yeah,
I'm 42.
First record with Neil Peart, and you know, that was my favorite album of theirs because first one I ever heard.
Yeah.
You know, kid. And on like a sampler album, and it had that in the title track, Fly By Night. But yeah, I mean, it was great. And like you said, Danny Carey from Tool too. What a great drummer. So like, I mean, the crew, him and Les on bass. And
I know. I mean, I was such a big fan of those bands, and still am. Like, you know, Les Claypool, Primus, Danny Carey, Tool. You know, and our Mastodon guys. You know, got to tour with and became really good friends with. So I just thought the company, and Steven too, absolutely, like it just like it felt like, you know, even though I had my apprehensions, it was a no brainer. So I did it, and man, it was hard. It was a lot of fun. It was challenging. I mean, I was in this room. Actually, it was arranged differently. The desk was over there, and I was sweating so much. Like it was an intense vocal performance, like dripping sweat. It doesn't help that this is an old house and doesn't have air conditioning, but yeah, I kept coming out and looking at my wife, and she's just like, "What the hell? Like, you're so beat up." And I'm like, "This is hell. I'm in hell right now."
But it came out great. I mean, it did.
Yeah, it did. I had such a great time. It's awesome.
It was awesome that you did that as well. And talk to me about the collaboration with Rick Springfield too, with Jesse's Girl too.
Oh, yeah.
That was very cool too. You know, I mean, the thing is, I mean, you've always loved, and everybody in the band, you know, Travis, Josh, all the guys have always loved so many different types of music, grew up on different things. So, you know, it was undeniable that the original Jesse's Girl was a great pop song, and it was just one of those songs that you hear, and the minute you hear those chords, you were a fan of when you were younger, right? So, tell me how that whole thing came about, because you know, obviously he was in the documentary on Sound City. It was great in that when he did that with Dave Grohl and those guys. And I just think, you know, he's just a cool guy, right? You know, so tell me about how that all came down.
So last year we went into the studio to just see if anything would happen. Because, you know, normally a lot of the writing takes place in my spot. And I wanted to see if anything had come from like the band sort of collaborating together. And so we did that, and we got a bunch of bits and things like that. It was a really fun experience. But at the end, we started to jam on something that just kind of felt just really straight ahead. And I started, you know, singing as a placeholder, Jesse's Girl, not the original melody, but the one that you hear in the song. Like, you know, for some reason, you know, the melody, called up those syllables from those words, and I just kept singing it. And then I thought, well, you know, what if we did a sequel to somebody else's song? You know, like directors do it all the time for movies, you know, so why not try to do that? And then we started, you know, talking about the idea of maybe doing a record that fell outside of the concept that would be a collection of sequels of other people's material, you know, really going down the crazy lane. But
that would be cool though. That would be really cool.
Yeah. Call it sequels. I don't know. We'll see, maybe in the future. But so we did it. We left the studio and I put the vocals together at the apartment. And then we kind of put it aside. Like we didn't really do much with it. It just sat in storage. And then the pandemic hit. And I thought, you know, we got this song. I'm going to send it to somebody to get mixed and see if it comes back, you know, in a different like form, if it sheds some light on it. And it did. And Blaze really liked it. And he suggested, you know, maybe, you know, getting Rick involved. And I thought, of course, I mean, that would validate it being a sequel. It would just make it feel more real, and Rick seemed game, and so we did it. And he was, you know, was down to star in the video. He's a really, really cool guy. You know, it could have gone, you know, the other way, of course, but it was like so pleasant. And he liked the song, and I don't know. I thought it was great. It was like the perfect, as Rick would put it, he was like, it's lightning in a bottle. And I agree with him, you know.
Yeah, it came out really fun. You know, I think about some of the cool covers you guys have done over the years. You know, what are some of your favorite covers that you've done? I remember when you were doing the Trooper live, which was always really great. You know, when you would do Maiden. But even when I remember it was part of, I think, the AB Club. You did the Smiths and Russia pushing the Landed Power, which is such a great Smith song. Mm-hmm. Was that something a song that you would love, that you said, like, well, let's do that?
Well, you know, they had like a list of songs. Like that was a part of it wasn't like we had made the selection. They were just like, these are our list of songs for whatever thing they were promoting, and we just happened to choose the Smiths tune.
Yeah.
But my favorite, I mean, of the covers, I just recently did it not too long ago. It's not going to make it on the Prizefighter record, but I did a Stand By Me cover, which I thought was kind of cool, because it was all with the modular synth, so it's really like kind of sterile and scary. And I think some of my, honestly, some of my favorite, Coheed covers are really like the covers when everything was done on a 4-track. The Sister Christian, which I don't know if anybody's ever heard, or that Outfield tune, Your Love.
Yeah.
I mean, those happen to be my favorite just because they were never really meant to be anything. And I think that was like like Coheed as a rock band. But I'm trying to think of, if you would know better than I what covers we did.
Yeah,
honest, like,
no, I know, but it's all you guys do. I always love the different ones that you guys have done. Hey, so as far as with Travis and Josh and the guys, are you in touch with them pretty regularly? Have you got to see each other at all during this pandemic?
Yeah, we did. I see Travis a lot.
Because you get the kids together, right?
We do, yeah. And Travis lives in Nyack, where we're all sort of from, and so I go up there to visit my folks as often as I can. So I do see Travis. I talked to Josh on the phone the other day, about the new record and potentially demoing out some drums and things like that. I text Zach here and there. I talk to Blaze like every day.
We're talking about, for those people watching, you probably might know now, Blaze James is the band's manager and has been really from the beginning. It's been a family that's, been unbreakable. And I love that. I think it's one of the great things about it. I was thinking about your wedding when you were, I think it was a Sufjan Stevens song when you guys were walking up. Do you remember?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, of course you remember. It's your wedding, but it was like, that was an incredible day. I'm just never forget how much I love that. So, when you, because you did the Never Ender before, which was amazing when you did the first 3 albums, and you've done, and I remember, of course, one of the last times that I actually saw you, we were in the same place, which was amazing, was when you were doing Good Apollo Volume 1, From Fear Through the Eyes of Madness, when you were touring that. Remember when I was on the radio in San Francisco, I was doing mornings there. I was doing mornings, nights, everything. But I remember how great I saw you guys there in Oakland. You did that, and you did the whole album. Are there plans when you come back to do any of the other albums all the way through again at this point? Or do you think you'll go out and just do a proper tour with the next record that you do?
Yeah, it's tough to say. Like, we were supposed to do Never Ender, No World for Tomorrow this year, and that got canceled. But I think we want to, there's always going to be time, and Never Ender has sort of become a thing within the band's DNA, going back and tributing records. So we'll probably do it eventually, but I think coming out, I think the focus right now is a record. So I'm not so sure we want to push that back. So we'll see.
I think that's great, though. Have you, as far as making a new record, Claudio, have you thought about who you might want to produce? Do you think you might end up doing a lot of this stuff yourself because you're in that situation of lockdown and it's pretty sequestered? Do you think that's something you might consider?
Yeah. We had such a good time doing the last record. It's definitely a possibility. But some of the material that I'm writing right now, it does feel new for the band. So I want to keep an open mind, for how to execute, in terms of the producer, department of the record. So we'll see. Like when I demo the material, it's pretty much, it's more than it used to be. It used to be like just kind of a shell. Like Travis was saying, I keep saying like, oh, they're skeletons of the songs. He's like, and he's just like laughing because, sometimes it is just a swollen shell. Like it's, there's a lot of stuff in there. So So sometimes, you know, we'll just take these sessions, bring them to the studio, and then kind of elaborate on them, you know, pull things out, redo certain things. So in a way it is written, but I think it might need a new set of eyes on it. So we'll see. Or ears.
You still have time, which is really about that, you know? I mean, I love the fact that one of the things you've always done for fans is you always make it, you know, people that are fans of Coheed are really, it's a lifestyle and they get into the experience of it. So you always give them something extra. I mean, there would be special editions that come out of the different great albums, you know, and I mean, remember that amazing box set for the first Never Ender. Remember that was just, I'm thinking back about that, how incredible that was. But with, you know, with the writing of the graphic novels and stuff, are you working on anything in that area right now as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So my wife and I are, Chandra, we're scripting the No World for Tomorrow story, which is the finale of the Coheed and Cambria portion of the Amory Wars. So we've been writing that. I mean, we're kind of hoping to be further along than we are, but, you know, because, you know, all of last year, pretty much, the school year anyway, we were teaching our son from home, you know, remotely. So it kind of pushed things off, but we're about 4 or 5 issues into the scripting that, and that's supposed to be a 12-issue maxi series. I also partnered with Steve Niles, and we started to adapt the My Brother's Blood Machine story that counterparted to the that first Prizefighter record. So that's actually being illustrated right now. So we're about an issue in there. And, you know, and I've been outlining the Vaxis stories. Did you ever get a Vaxis box set? The first box set?
I got to get
Oh, Matt, it's incredible. Like, just the art is insane. Chase Stone, the fellow that illustrated it, is actually from my hometown where I grew up. We're about 10 years apart, but
he's like, in the Kingston, Nyack area, right? Right around there.
No, well, in Rockland. Oh, because I'm from Nyack.
Rockland, yeah.
Yeah. But it's, you know, it just looks like a feature, you know. So Shawnee and I, you know, worked on that, and now we're, you know, plotting out the outline for the follow-up, which is Vaxis 2. I have a working title that's the sub, but we'll see. And yeah, I've been working with Chase just like on those illustrations, new characters, new locations, things like that. And yeah, so that story is progressing.
Cool.
Yeah, so we got some things worked. Actually, hold on. I don't know if you've seen these yet, but we started to do Coheed and Cambria dolls.
Yeah, which I thought was amazing. I read about them and I've got to get them. I've got to have them in my house, you know? Yeah. And by the way, I mean, I don't know if people watching know this, but, you know, I mean, I made a deal with the guys years ago. I said, you know, I know these records are going to go gold. And because I felt so close to the band as friends and we were brothers, I remember 13 years before I did it. But I said to you guys, I go, man, when Good Apollo goes gold, I go, I'm getting the dragonfly on my calf tattoo. So I have a dragonfly on my leg. I do have the Coheed dragonfly. I got the tattoo. I don't know if I can show it up there to people, but here, you can kind of see it, right? Oh, it's a mess. Here we go. Can you see it?
Yeah, I see it. It's there. We got holy mackerel.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's commitment, right, Claudio?
Absolutely. I got a Klaus Nomi tattoo on my leg.
Do you really?
Yeah.
I never knew you were a fan of Klaus Nomi.
Klaus Nomi. Look at this nasty sock.
Did you?
Klaus Nomi.
Did you ever see the Klaus Nomi performance he did with Bowie on Saturday Night Live?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I have I have that on VHS with like all the original commercials from like 1979 or whatever it was when he did Lodger. Before Scary Monsters. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. No, but it's cool that you do that. So tell me about these dolls too, because those things look great.
Yeah, so so they're done up by NECA. And yeah, it's Coheed and Cambria. You know, this is the likeness taken from the Second Stage Turbine Blade story. You know, Coheed comes with blades and the arm cannon, and Cambria has some like, her like sort of telekinetic power bubbles happening. And yeah, that's them.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's so cool that they did that. I mean, I remember in the very beginning when the first Amory Wars graphic novel came out, we were doing like an in-store. You guys were in New York City, remember? And people were lined up down the street. It was a really great turnout, right?
Yeah, it was awesome.
I mean,
what's that?
Oh no, I was going to say. So, do you find you find a lot of the people that have been fans and have followed you or have been following the story? Do you get a lot of correspondence from those people, Claudio?
Like when you mean correspondence, like
people reaching out and saying how much they appreciate and love the.
Oh, absolutely. Whether it's on social media or in person or, yeah. When it's really interesting when characters are now, the inspiration for names of children, the Ambelinas I've met, the Coheed and Cambrias I've met. I met twin set Coheed and Cambria.
They named their kids. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? I mean,
yeah.
It's got to be just a great feeling, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I've met an Al the Killer. No, I'm just kidding.
Al the Killer, man, going back, wow. That's but so tell me, so being a dad with Atlas as he's getting bigger, have you noticed his interest in music? Is he a fan?
Yeah, absolutely. He plays with all of these things. For a while, his favorite synthesizer was the ARP Odyssey, which is like over there in the corner. But then he moved over to the 2600. That's become his go-to.
You feel like he has the natural ability to perform, right?
Yeah, because I'm not that proficient in any instrument really. But I was learning sort of scales on piano and he happened to take an interest. And so I just did all the majors and minors. And he can now call them out with his ear, which I can't do. So, you play a scale for him and he'll call it out. And I mean, I could never do that. So that's pretty cool. Other than that, I mean, yeah, he's interested. But kids, like, they come in and out of things.
How's it been homeschooling him? Because obviously, a lot of your fans are parents as well. Has it been a challenge, or has it been some of it been good? Because I mean, I know keeping kids, like focused on a Zoom call or things like that. What has that been like for you?
I think at first it was difficult, but he's also he's into it. He seems to get it and is totally fine learning remote. I mean, at the moment, he does go in person Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So Wednesday's really only his remote day. But before that, yeah, it was all week. But he seems to be fine. It's not an issue. I've heard some nightmares from other parents, but he seems to be okay with it.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments was when I was in Phoenix and you guys, it was you, Coheed, and Primus and Tool, and you guys were all playing that gigantic outdoor show, and it was incredible because both your wives, you and Travis, it had the boys would like literally on those, as everybody, like on one of those, like kind of look like telephone wires because just so like they can run around, but it's almost like a leash. I mean, look, everybody, but they were kidding and they were watching their dads on stage, and it was just what a great, beautiful moment.
Yeah, man,
cool. It was amazing. But Claudio, this is great. I mean, I'm so glad that you taking the time to hang with me on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
I remember how funny it was that I was texting you that tattoo as I was getting it. Remember?
Yeah.
I was sending you guys pictures. But I made that promise 13 years earlier, and then I finally did it. I wanted to be a man of my word. So it came through, and it's I like, because I've always loved that. That dragonfly is just, that and the keys are so cool. Hey, so one of the things we do on the show, but I give the artists options, talk about, their favorite records of all time, or it doesn't have to be their favorite. It could be their 7 favorite albums of a decade, of a style, of a year, of just whatever, something that is inspirational to them that they can tell stories about. So with yours, because, I know how hard it is. I mean, look, even in my book, where there's a chapter about you guys in my book, in my memoir, even for the decades, I had to put 50 records for each decade, which was almost impossible, right? I went, I forgot that record. But at the same time, it's good for your fans and people to hear about some of the records that mean so much to you. Because, isn't it music that's gotten us through everything? I mean, there's no question about it.
Yeah.
So what I love about these, they aren't your favorite albums of all time, but they have memories that counterpart that are significant to you. So, and I'm sure it was one of those things where maybe when we sent you that request, that it was that day or that night, because you could think of different days,
Totally.
Instead of putting the label on it that it's your favorites, 7 favorites. But they're all great. So I'm going to start at the top with this and talk to you about it. Now, I love this because what a run. It's the Beatles, anything from Rubber Soul to Abbey Road, which I think is cool. You know what I mean? I mean, who doesn't love those records? And you would agree, like at Rubber Soul was when they started to take that turn where things, not only did they add more acoustic, but they got even more introspective and away from some of the original pop. Why do you love that period of the Beatles so much?
Well, yeah. And Abbey Road, and when I say Abbey Road, because Abbey Road is technically the last record that they did. Yeah. I mean, released was
Let It Be.
Let It Be. So Let It Be is in there as well, just in.
Yeah.
But, that was a band I had, I think maybe the first band I started to dissect. Yeah. And, when I think of like that whole conspiracy of Paul being dead, and all of the like little imagery that you could find in the album covers, whether it was Sgt. Pepper or Abbey Road with the license plate saying 28 if, and them dressed in their, from the grave digger to the pallbearer, yada, yada, yada. I mean, just things like that. I found that so interesting, whether it was true or not. Like, I think it might have been like the initial things that sort of informed me into what actually writing to a concept is. And not that that's what they were doing, but the fact that it was being perceived that way. Like you could take, what is it, like Sgt. Pepper and put it in the mirror and something, I can't remember exactly what it is, but something happens backwards. Do you know, Matt? You have to know. Right. What happens? You know what I'm talking about?
You mean as far as what it looks like? You mean as far as...
Yeah. Isn't there like a message?
Yeah.
I can't remember. I had that. I mean, we're going back, like, I think I was in junior high.
Yeah. I remember there were so many different things, like with I Buried Paul. I mean, like, and all those, and I think, believe it or not, that whole rumor with the Beatles started on Rutgers University at the college radio station that I was on. That was the first place where they started the whole rumors about Paul being dead at that radio station.
Oh, really?
And then a New York station, ABC, the top 40 station, the overnight DJ, went off and just did the whole thing. And they actually escorted him out of the radio station with the police and management in the morning and got on the radio and said, basically said he was out of his mind in a kind way and said, we don't agree with what he's done and we've relieved him of his job. So it started and came from that. But yeah, I can't remember exactly what that was.
Yeah, I also think, the Beatles also when I was in high school, like, I thought of the Beatles, I thought of like Sgt. Pepper, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. And I remember being like, if there's a drug I want to do before I do anything, it's like acid. And I did, I attempted twice, got bum tabs. But I went for acid before I tried any other, like, like a lunatic, like, let me go do this and not have any like frame of reference. But yeah, the Beatles informed my drug use.
Yeah. Now, that's great though. I love it. That's amazing. Now, the next record that you picked was Axis Bold as Love, Hendrix's second album. And what a great record this is. It's one of my favorites. It's interesting because, when I think about what you write and the things that you write with futuristic and science fiction and, Hendrix loved reading novels about science fiction. He was so into that. And, there were the stories of him being on planes, reading these paperbacks all the time. And, he was really into it. And this is such a great record. I mean, I know that you love it like I do, because we've talked about it before. I mean, things like Castles Made of Sand. I mean, it's poetry besides the playing. So tell me why you love it, Claudio.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to be redundant and say anything Jimi Hendrix like I did the Beatles, but I love all Hendrix. I think I like this one because it's a transitional record between, Are You Experienced and Electric Ladyland. It's a softer side of Hendrix. And, the first time I had listened to Jimmy, I had heard Little Wing, but I had heard Sting's rendition of Little Wing. And I remember when I actually heard the original being like kind of confused, this must be Sting's song, I was young. I kind of went down the Jimmy hole, Jesus, where am I? Everything about, Hendrix in terms of the way he played the guitar, the sound of it, even like All Along the Watchtower and the wah pedal in that, it was like really kind of the first time I had thought about guitar as a form of expression. And I think on this record, because of like all the clean playing and not what you usually think about with Hendrix, I think that made this record kind of special to me.
Yeah, it's an incredible one. Now, I love that you picked the John Frusciante solo record. In fact, his first one, which was, Neandro Lades, and usually just a T-shirt, which I got to say is, the times that I've met and talked to John, when, and mentioned things about his solo records, he's always so grateful that somebody actually paid attention to those records. And this was really him kind of reaching into the avant-garde too, and doing some different things, and basically on a 4-track. Tell me why this record is so important to you.
Because that was, it taught me that the 4-track is an instrument. Like the atmosphere of that album. Like I remember listening to him, like I have that at home. I could make records like this. And I think it was just it was like a soundtrack to the friends group I been a part of in high school. So I think that's why. I mean, I thought the music touched me in a way that, like, I don't know, nothing else had. And it felt, even though it felt foreign, it felt very familiar because I had the tools to create something like it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Exactly. Like, you've got the guitar, you've got the 4-track, and it's I like the fact that it was cool that Rick Rubin and American Records were just so willing to put out and do, and let him, do his solo records and supported him as an artist. And I thought that was great. I mean, he's such a great guitar player too. Now, the next record is one that we both love, because what a fan of this band's I am. Thin Lizzy's Dedication, which is a compilation album. It's actually, it's Thin Lizzy's. It's just kind of a singles comp. It's not all their singles, but it's just a great compilation. Talk to me about why you love Thin Lizzy, Phil Lynott.
Well, so this record more so because of the song Dedication. So that was my introduction to Thin Lizzy. I was watching an episode of Headbangers Ball, and Dedication was a video that played on the episode. And I remember thinking, oh, wow, it's like a Hendrix I was young, again, middle school. Like, so I definitely wasn't thinking like this. I was just like, this is like maybe this is like a Hendrix for a more modern day. And then I found out that, Phil had passed away, but I loved that song. And I know I think it was like kind of put together after he had passed.
Right on it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a great, like, it's got a hook to it. Like, and that was the bait that got me into Thin Lizzy. And yeah, I mean, I fell in love with it, and I bought that compilation from a Sam Goody on tape, and I listened to it over and over again. And as I did when I was younger, if I had a song that I liked, I would just, until finally, realizing that maybe I should move into the rest of the collection.
Yeah. And you did, of course.
Oh, absolutely. I love Thin Lizzy. I mean, There are definitely Coheed songs where I try to emulate Phil.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, things like, I mean, I think some of the things like 10 Speed, there were some others, you know what I mean?
Yep.
You could definitely hear it, which is great. Now, the next record you picked was Misfits, Legacy of Brutality. And I'm sure you could have picked a lot of different Misfits records. You like a lot, but tell me why this one was one that you were thinking about.
So when I started, so I was in my first band, one of the fellas, either his father worked at or his father knew somebody that did, but they worked at a tape manufacturing plant that manufactured Caroline Records cassettes. And so when we would go over to this house and rehearse, there was, a wall of tapes, and we would take, and go home and listen and learn basically how to play music. At least that's what I did. And I remember a few of them, like it was like Naked Reagan, Gay Bikers on Acid, the Meat Men. There was just a whole ton of stuff. But the one that really stood out to me was this one. And I feel like this sort of gave me an idea of, song structure. It was easy to play. It was a lot of power chords. I learned how to write songs from this record.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how when you're a kid, it's that thing, you find stuff in other people's houses or their brothers and sisters have, or something like that, where it's their parents, you know what I mean? Or somebody who works somewhere, and just, you're so hungry for music, right? Especially back in those days when, you didn't have the access that you have today to get everything that you do. So through streaming. But that's amazing. So Jane's Addiction, Ritual de la Habitual is the album that you picked, which is their third album, actually, their second major label one. And what a great record that is. Tell me why this record's important to you, Claudio.
Side B. There's, I love the whole record, but side B, and three, I don't know if is 3 days on side A. Is that end side A? But Classic Girl. That was a very important song to me. I think when, I felt like I was in love, like Classic Girl was the soundtrack to those moments, but 3 days also felt like Stairway to Heaven, like the sequel to Stairway to Heaven to me, and it also kind of informed me that you can, like Stairway to Heaven, they're like practically two songs, in a compound tune, you know what I mean? You have the structure of part A, and then you have the structure of the out, which is part B. And that's what, it reminded me of like a Stairway to Heaven for my time.
Yeah. Yeah.
3 days did. But a Classic Girl, that whole second side, I just thought it was such a beautifully constructed record. I mean, one of my favorite bands, I know the bands that I was in high school, we emulated, like if it wasn't Guns N' Roses, it was Jane's Addiction. So
yeah. Two really important, great bands. And the next one you picked was a combination of two records, basically, that, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, the epic double album that actually just came, it celebrated its 25th anniversary just about a week ago. And then that B-Sides compilation, which, and it was called Pisces Iscariot, which was great. It had that cover of Landslide on it,
Yeah.
Which they did in 2 takes at the BBC because they told them they only had 10 minutes. So they literally, Billy Corgan told me that story. He goes, yeah, they told me 10 minutes, and I just laid it down, and we just took the lead from one take, and the rest of it was just live. So, but they did a great version of Landslide, right? I mean,
yeah. Oh my God, it's amazing. I mean, yeah, that's why I put Pisces Iscariot on here. Pisces Iscariot, Nirvana's Incesticide, like these were like, again, like these records taught me the importance of the demo process and sharing them. I now every Coheed record, I always share the demos in some capacity because I just think that they're important. They, and again, yeah, I mean, I remember a time where our friends group would just listen to Landslide over and over again. It was like an important. So I remember and I don't want to bring I remember one of the times I was tripping and waking and like staying up all night and watching the sun rise over the Hudson River and listening to that record, that collection of B-sides, and that feeling I had. It was beautiful being young. And I mean, I go back to those moments and, being outside all night and feeling like the change of day and the like, you know, the moisture on your body. I love it.
Yeah.
But
Memory, right? There's those things that are associated with those memories with songs that you love.
yeah.
You know?
But Melancholy, the day that came out, you know, I was in an art class in high school where, you know, around Halloween, you know, if you had like a good pitch or a good piece of art that you wanted to put on a storefront window, you could get the opportunity to do that, and skip a day of school. So, you know, spend your day painting. So I did that. And that day Melancholy came out. And so I got a copy of it. Cause you know, around the time I think like the stores were opening early, or you could get, you know, so we went and got a copy of it, went to my storefront window, and I painted for, you know, listening to this record all day. And now anytime and now when the fall happens, and the way the lights sort of shine on all the greenery, I can't help but think of Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. It's just, you know, stapled on this season of the year for me. And it just reminds me of, you know, being in that town, doing a piece of art, which by the way, I never finished. I just ended up like, at the time my girlfriend was painting at the bank next door. So I just really wanted to do it to listen to music and kind of be in the proximity of my girlfriend.
Yeah.
You know, so,
of course it's important. Nothing wrong with it. That's great.
Yeah. But yeah, I just love that it, you know, it's stapled to a time in my life and a season. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it is so great. I can't believe it's 25 years. I can believe it's 25 years, but it's great. Now, you picked a staple next. And speaking of concept albums, you know, Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, which for a long time was probably the longest running album on the Billboard album chart for years. It never, I mean, it meant more people were discovering it or buying second copies, but it was such an important record to so many people. Tell me why you loved it, Claudio.
I think it's the synthesizers. That's why this room is the way it is. You know, I think On the Run, you know, that sequence, you know, just I think it spurred my curiosity for synthesis, I guess, you know, and just the things that they would conjure up when listening to it and the lights were off. You know, I love records like that. And it's been a long time since I've experienced a record like that. You know, I think this happens to be one. You know, clearly The Wall, anything kind of in the Pink Floyd, the Animals, whatever have you. But this is the one that I think, you know, just reminds me of, what is it, the VS 3 synthy, you know, sequence on the Run. It's just the visuals that come when the lights are off.
Yeah.
But the other records I think would be like Yes is Fragile, or you know, Night at the Opera by Queen.
Yeah.
But, you know, Pink Floyd, I just, you know, one of my favorite bands of all time. I mean, clearly, I write concept records.
Yeah.
I'm not the first to do it.
You know, speaking of Queen, Night at the Opera, I mean, obviously that's another one that's an album that takes you on a journey. So talk to me about that. I mean, I saw that tour when I was a kid. 1976, the Beacon Theater in New York City, and my mind was blown because they were so great live, you know?
Yeah.
And this album and the one right before it, Sheer Heart Attack, were just so, I mean, I love Queen too, all of those. But that was the tour for those first 4 albums. So I was like, it was just, I mean, one of my favorite live shows I've ever seen, to be honest with you.
Queen too, man. Fairy Feller's Master Stroke.
Yep, right after Ogre Battle.
That's that's an honorable mention.
Yeah,
I mean, that's some great songwriting there. But Night at the Opera. So Queen wasn't a band I grew up with, right? Queen was introduced to me in the way I like Queen right now by Michael Birnbaum, the fella that produced the first few Coheed records.
Yeah.
You know, Mike turned me on to Night at the Opera. We were in his truck, we were driving, and he played Death on Two Legs. And again, another one of those moments where, you know, it's kind of dark, you know, and we're just sitting, you know, we're sitting in the car, we're listening, and just ideas, thoughts, pictures, visuals are coming into my mind, when you hear that guitar like doing its thing. And so I kind of fell in love with Death on Two Legs. And every night while making Silent Earth 3, because that was the record he had introduced me to it, I would listen to Night at the Opera in hopes that some of like Prophet Song would rub off on me, because I wasn't much of a harmonic singer in terms of like adding harmonies and things like that. I mean, I do it a lot now, but I think that's the first record where I really started to incorporate them into the songs, and I think Prophet Song had a lot to do with that. And obviously, Night at the Opera, Bohemian Rhapsody. Sorry, Night at the Opera. I meant to say Bohemian Rhapsody. But yeah, that's just one of those records,
Prophet Song. I remember seeing it live, and him doing the vocals on both sides of the stage. They would do when they played live back then, throw the vocals like open, with Now I'm Here, and then Now I'm Here, Now I'm There, and go side to the stage. And of course, he did the whole thing with the vocal beat rolling over itself during Prophet. So it was so great, no question.
Yeah. Another one that I'd like to throw out there, and more so because I just thought about it not too long ago, was The Who's Tommy. And not because I was a big fan of The Who, but when I first started high school, we got a chance to see The Who Tommy on Broadway. And I remember really enjoying it, but never kind of equating it to a rock album, you know. And so I just think about that every once in a while, like, oh, wow, I'd actually seen a rock opera play out in front of me, probably before I'd seen any concert, I'm probably like my first concert was like Black Sabbath at the Beacon Theater. So, so yeah, I'm going to throw an honorable mention in there.
Yeah, you should, I mean, and Quadrophenia, who I know.
Oh, yeah.
We've had that conversation, you, me, and Travis.
Mashing.
Here. And have talked about that masterpiece. I know we listened to it on the road in Europe on tour in the bus. We definitely were blasting Quadrophenia at least one of those nights. I got to thank you, Claudio, for coming by and doing this today, and taking the time, man. I really appreciate it, and I love seeing you. You know what I mean? It's great because I think about you and Chandra and Atlas all the time, and and I'm excited about the new stuff. I've got to get that special edition of that record. I can't believe.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to do. I can order it from Amazon.
No, we'll get you one.
All right, yeah, I got to get that.
Of course,
no question.
Yeah, it's so cool. It looks so good.
Yeah, I got to see all that artwork that you guys did. I mean, it's going to be unbelievable. Chase. But listen, Claudio, thank you so much for doing the show. It was so great to have you on. I always love talking music with you, and I'm glad you got to, let your fans know about some of the other things that you've been up to, and I'm glad you're doing well. I'm glad the family's all doing well. And say hi to the rest of the guys for me. Send my love to everybody.
Absolutely. Right. Travis says hello too, by the way. I told him we were going to be talking today. So
yeah, I got to reach out. I'm going to reach out to him. I definitely had to give him a call.
Yeah, when all this is, hopefully like away and you're in town, man, let us know. I'm in the city now, so it's
When I come back to town, we'll definitely hang. We'll have dinner. We'll do something cool. It'd be great, and it'd be great to see Atlas again. He's getting big, man.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah. I tried to pull him out of the cart today. It was like, oh, there goes. See you later, shoulder.
It's amazing. Great. Well, thanks again. I appreciate it, Claudio, for doing this today, man.
You got it, Matt. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, take care. It was great. Claudio Sanchez, everybody. It was so great to have Claudio today. It's a long-term friendship. He's written so many great songs, and as an artist in every aspect, in every sense of the word, there's no question about it. And we look forward to the next Coheed record and the full-length new Prizefighter Inferno, which will be great as well. Anyway, I'm Matt Pinfield. I want to thank you so much for joining us. This is In a Lonely Place. And remember, I say this every time, never lonely if you have music in your life, because it'll get you through anything. Thank you so much for watching today. From everybody here at Rolling Live Studios and myself, I hope you have a great one, and we'll see you next time.